Para-X, its affiliates, or its sponsors.
Supernatural, metaphysical, paranormal. You know, all those things you've been wondering about? Are you ready to go deeper into the realms of the unknown? I hope you've got your walking shoes on, because life is an adventure, and this is the journey. Come on, let's go. Hello and welcome to the show, everyone. It's Wednesday night, and this is the Journey Radio Show. I'm your host, Jen Cruz, and we're showing up as the She-Squatchers tonight because we're going to be talking about our favorite subject, which is Bigfoot. And so, of course, I've got my trusty teammate on the line. Hey, Jenna, are you there?
I am here, and again, I'm super excited for our guest.
Me too. I was excited to. I just met Troy this week online, so we've been chatting. Let me just tell you a little bit about our guest. His name is Troy Hudson. He's coming to us tonight to talk about Bigfoot on native land. And he had his first experience with what people call Bigfoot when he was just 9 years old in southeast Oklahoma. Later in life, he attended a Bigfoot expedition with the BFRO in 2004 and subsequently became an investigator, later an organizer for BFRO field expeditions in Oklahoma, Texas, and Arkansas. Troy founded the Native Oklahoma Bigfoot Organization. He's participated in the Sasquatch Genome Project and organizes the Honobia Bigfoot Conference. So that's among many other things. We'd like to welcome Troy to the show. Hey, Troy.
How are you doing? Thank you.
I'm excited that you could join us tonight.
Thank you. Thank you for being on.
Yes, I've been hearing about your conference in Honobia for, I would probably say 3 or 4 years now, from our good friend Jimmy, who regularly comes down there. He's in the chat room right now. He says Oklahoma rules.
Hey, Jimmy.
Yes, and he lives in Minnesota, but I know he goes down there quite often. He's been looking at property to move down there. So he absolutely loves your conference and has for years recommended that we get down there for that.
Yes.
So.
Yes, y'all. Definitely, it's one of the original ones from back in the early 2000s, or the 2005s when it started. But back then there was only a few conferences across the country, and now that they're everywhere. But Honobia was one of the first in the areas of back in the middle of 2000s.
So tell me a little bit about that.
About the conference?
Yes, since we're on the subject.
Yeah, it actually started out of some of the people that live in Honobia, some of the citizens there, that extended from an incident that occurred years prior, what people refer to as the Hanabi Siege. There was an incident that occurred with a landowner, between the landowner and the Bigfoot, and there was some stuff that went on, and a shooting took place, and it got some media attention. So when that media attention occurred, some of the people in town that have businesses like the store that was open then, Clancy's, and some of the cabin owners, they got a little bit of money of people coming in and staying. So ladies that organized the festival aspect of it in 2005 was at the Honobia Community Center and the Senior Citizens there where the ball field is. And it grew into where the conference started, where it was at. A gentleman named Farland Huff actually attended and kind of went up to the ladies and said, well, you need to have a Bigfoot conference in the Bigfoot Conference. So it was kind of nothing but a kind of art show, stuff people would make and bring and sell. There was some storytelling, and it basically grew from there into a conference. Myself and another gentleman was asked to take over the conference in 2010. And from there, we've been a part of the conference ever since. And it's grown to where it is today, as far as probably being the uniqueness about the Honobia conference is it's a 2-day conference. It has a festival and a conference. There are conference halls where the speakers are, and the festival is where all the vendors are. This past year, we had 62 vendors think there were 6 food vendors, kind of a carnival type style vendor. We have a fairway or wherever you call it, where all the vendors are. There's a place there for the kids to a kid zone. We have helicopter rides. An organization that does tours from northern Arkansas comes down and they do helicopter rides around Honobia. We have storytelling. So as far as what Honobia offers in a conference festival, I will be proud to say we're the only ones that actually offer what we offer, because there's no other conferences in the country that has the plethora of different things that we offer at our event. There's also the Choctaw Nation does a Bigfoot 5K run on Saturday morning. So it is, Honobia is a population of maybe about 115, maybe 120 at the most population around. That weekend of the conference, it grows to about 4,000 people for the weekend, because the people that come through the gate, you average 2 people to a car, and we have people at the gate that hand out flyers, and they're from the church mission. Excuse me. And people that come in the conference, there's some people come that may not go to the conference. They go to the festival aspect to go look at all the vendors and all the T-shirts and hats and different stuff that they have, and go do the helicopter ride. Then there's some that come and do both. So on average of the weekend is over by the time they've clicked people at the gate, and kind of multiply that times 2, because usually there's about 2 to 3 people in a car. There's usually between 4,500 to 5,000 people that come through the gate for the weekend. So the town grows at that moment, that weekend. So everybody actually in the community benefits from that scenario, because all the cabins are full. It's the first weekend of October, and if you don't get a cabin by July, or don't get an RV site or a campsite, I mean, we have people. We have a board in the steel tent where people come in and sign where they're from. They've been doing that for the last, I think, 5 years. And you can go up there and read. And I've seen people, there's been people from France, Canada. There's been people from all over. So
very fun. Very fun.
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit about your background with Bigfoot. So have you always believed in Bigfoot? When did you really, how did this all just really grab you?
Well, when I was growing up, I grew up in a small town, Henrietta, Oklahoma. The town I grew up in at that time, the nationality was either Caucasian or it was American Indian. It was one or the other. The town being kind of a mix between the two nationalities there. There's a lot of people in the community that's very traditional. I lived in a small little neighborhood, and when I was growing up, that I remember, the neighbors next to me were Creek, because that's part of the Creek Nation where Henrietta is, and Boy Scouts was a big thing. There's a lot of Native tradition in the Boy Scouts in those days, and my dad was a scoutmaster for the troop, and we would go to eastern Oklahoma and southeast Oklahoma, not too far from Honobia. Hearing stories as a kid was more mere the situation where people would talk about, don't be outside when the street lights come on. You need to come home because the woolly booger will get you. So just little things. Growing up in high school, heard some stories about some people that lived. I had a girlfriend that lived south of town, and she was Seminole Indian, and her father would talk about, don't bother the people that live on the other side of the river. And for years, not a big deal, but I kept wondering. I asked one day, because there's no house across the river, and come to find out what he was referring to is don't bother with the Bigfoots that live there, but that's not the word he used. It wasn't until going on that Boy Scout camping trip, was when we had something happen. While we were there, we were setting up camp, and this is in the southeast, this is in the Kiamichi Mountains. We heard what sounded like somebody was chopping wood. From what I remember, we heard it periodically, and we would ask, and then finally one of the staff members from the Boy Scout Camp Tom Hale was the name of it. He would say, oh, that's just some man that lives up in the mountain. Don't worry about it. Well, it went on all day long and all evening. So one night, me and my tent mate decided we're going to go try to find this guy that lived in the woods that chopped wood every now and then, one time, all day and all night. We saw a figure in the dark, a large figure, as we were trying to work our way around. We never made it anywhere. We weren't too far away from camp, so we made our way back to camp. We realized the camp, all the scoutmasters were sleeping on their cots next to the fire, so we realized, okay, it wasn't one of them. It wasn't until I got home when my mom made a mention that she said, you boys know that some lady was on the news talking about she saw a Bigfoot in her backyard right next to Boy Scout camp. So me and my friend kind of looked at each other like, I wonder what that was. That's the last I remember of that. Grew up, went in the Navy, went overseas, came back, lived in Oklahoma for a little bit, went to work for the federal government, moved down to Texas. Sitting in my office, a gentleman walked in and said, "Hey, you're from Oklahoma, right?" And I said, "Yes." He goes, "You ever seen a Bigfoot?" And I didn't know what he was saying. He goes, "There's this organization that's got a Bigfoot expedition in Oklahoma." So I said, it didn't really spark me. And then he tried to start pronouncing the name of the town. So I walked into the office and looked at his computer. I said, "That's Honobia, Oklahoma." And then my memory started flooding back. During those times back when I was young, I realized that I had family. There was family I had that lived in Tallahena. And I know these places don't mean anything, but Tallahena, Smithfield. Well, you have to go through Honobia to go to these places back and forth. That's back in those days. That was the only place you could go because the roads were still dirt back in those days. Well, the BFRO situation where they were having an expedition in Honobia, and all those memories started flooding back to me, and I'm thinking, you know what? This is interesting. I'm going to go on this. So when I went on the expedition, long story short, I actually found out that I knew more about the topic than what I thought I did. And then that's when Matt basically said, you're in law enforcement. We don't have anybody in this area, and we need, a point man. And it kind of gradually worked into, then I kind of started doing some stuff for BFRO, and then it kind of became I guess you can call it a part-time job.
Very fun. So then it became an obsession for you?
I wouldn't say an obsession. It was an interest because during some of the investigations, there were things that I would notice and stories I would start hearing. And when I'd start reading other reports that other investigators were investigating, all these things about my childhood, all these times being in the woods and hearing these sounds and finding the way these sticks and branches were, all those little things kind of kept flooding back into my mind. And then I would start asking questions to my mom and asking questions to friends I grew up with, and start realizing that actually I was around this a lot more than what I thought it was. I had taken it in as a kid, but didn't really even pay anything attention to it. So, excuse me, it became a situation where a lot of the investigations that I were doing, strangely enough, happened to find a way that whenever I would travel in my job in law enforcement, I would travel different parts of the Texas, Oklahoma area, because I would teach classes because of the topic of the job I was doing. I would find locations where investigations would pop up from there, and I would take time off. When I would go to teach a class, I'd take 2 days off and go do these investigations at these locations. So I just fell into a little sweet spot that I could actually do my real job and then take some time and do investigations not too far away from where I was at. So
Oh, you're so lucky. A lot of people don't get that chance.
I will say that I blessed in a way, because I've been extremely lucky, very lucky, the amount of hours that I've been able to devote to this. And then it's just grown from there up to what we are doing today, because I have a network. There's a network of law enforcement. There's a network of different professions. And in the law enforcement world, it's a brotherhood. I'm also tied into emergency management, and that's another brotherhood. So it's in those types of jobs that you might not know this location or know that, but you might know somebody that does know somebody. And I've had the blessing of being able to network everything that I've got going now over these years. And now I mean, I spent today, just a few minutes before this, talking with a contact that I have in northern Oklahoma talking about some stuff that he's got and people reporting to him. So we have a staff now in our organization. We have guys broke up in different parts of the state to handle different areas because it's just with the social media and everything going on, there's the topic of Bigfoot is a lot bigger than it was back 15 years ago. So due to social media, Facebook, Twitter, and everything else, the reports come a whole lot more than they used to. So I would pretty much put it on the fact that social media has grown the way it has.
Very much so. Very much so. So our topic tonight is Bigfoot on native land. So I'm really interested, you know, I'm being partly Native American from northern Minnesota, Ojibwe. Of course, that's always a topic that I'm going to be interested in, is connecting with Native people and the Native stories from different tribes in different parts of the country. Just, it's been so much fun for me to hear the stories from different places, and there's a lot of similarities I've noticed. So can't wait to hear what you have to share with us.
Well, speaking on the topic, on the topic from Native, because there's people's got books and movies and shows and different stuff out there about Native Bigfoot and the connection between Native American people and the Bigfoot. Excuse me. My family history, I have now just recently through my cousins have discovered that my own family have had encounters themselves. I've just now, my father passed away when I was young. My mom just passed away back in 2009. So I really don't have too much of my my immediate family left. I just have cousins, aunts, and uncles. Well, I'm finding out a lot of the history from my mom's side that they have had Bigfoot encounters on my mom's side of the family. So we're doing some digging. My family on my mom's side is very Native in tradition. I have cousins. Matter of fact, some of my cousins, they can trace their roots back to John Redbird Smith, which is a Cherokee prominent citizen from back years ago that brought the stomp dance back into the powwows post removal and post statehood. And there's some tradition there that I'm learning. Going on to the Bigfoot on native land. Sorry, how I got started in this is several years ago I was invited to speak at a few tribal events. Creek Nation had some, I think it was a Halloween event, but they wanted a scary topic. Well, somebody brought up the word Bigfoot to have somebody come in and talk about Bigfoot. Well, of course, my contacts with people reached out and asked me if I would. So I went up, and that was several years ago, and that kind of grew from there. So the way it is now, I have spoken at the Delaware Nation. Delaware Nation hosts their own Bigfoot festival. The Delaware Nation actually shuts their tribal offices down for that day because all the employees come in and help set up for the festival. So Delaware Nation of Oklahoma pretty much embraces the Bigfoot phenomenon. There's some tradition there. There's some situations that go on some of their properties, which is similar to a lot of the other properties. You have tribal land, sometimes where some of the buildings like the schools, the daycares, government offices set on land that's kind of in a rural area that's surrounded by woods and surrounded by farmland or whatever. It's not uncommon for some of the tribal employees as well as guests to see something standing out there in the field not too far away from some of the buildings. So there are certain areas that the tribal nations, in a way, this is kind of a daily thing in some of their what's the word I'm trying to find? Lost my train of thought. But the Delaware Nation has a festival, and they're the only ones I know that actually shut their offices down so their employees can go and work the festival. So
now that is amazing. I think it's amazing that the whole town gets together like that. That
It
is
is.
wonderful.
It is. It's in the middle of October, and I will shoot you this year's dates. It's usually after ours. Ours is the first week in October, and theirs is usually the second or third weekend of October. um, they are very, I mean, they're very, very open about it. Of course, my first year speaking was their first year, or their second year, actually, I'm sorry. Bringing some more of the native tribal legends and some of the folklore and stuff in. This past year, I brought Pete in. I spoke the first 2 years, and to kind of give me a break so people didn't hear my stuff all the time. Brought Pete Buffalo Head in. Pete is from the Ponca Nation, and he has a plethora of knowledge as well. I've learned a lot from Pete, and he's a good guy, and there's a lot of stuff that go on up where he lives. So no one is an expert in this. Everybody has their little areas that they know about. I have found on the native side of this is I've spoken to elders over the years in different capacities, either at a powwow or just be sitting at a coffee shop at one of the travel plazas or something, just having a short 5-minute conversation or a quick email. Some do email, some don't. Their concern is that the generation growing up, storytelling is losing its way. And I'm not talking Bigfoot storytelling. I'm talking about any storytelling, fables with tribal customs and traditions and folklore. So sometimes elders, when they find somebody that's willing to sit and listen and take it in and be respectful and just suck it in and remember it and have it for later, they kind of embrace that as well. And I've been very lucky to be introduced and get to know a lot of the elders from the different tribes, and they've shared quite a bit of information about their folklore and history and what the past, the present, and what the future may be on some of this. Because in Oklahoma, there's very few areas that's wilderness anymore. Southeast Oklahoma is probably the most, even in the area, out unless you get a little further south into East Texas where it gets a little deeper. But Southeast Oklahoma has a range of mountains, the Comanche Mountains, that are starting to kind of get smaller with the logging and people from different parts of the country coming in, buying the land because it's cheap. The land has got scenery to it. So the woods are being cut back, and then industries and oil industries and gas industry through Oklahoma. So a lot of the habitat in areas where they have normally thrived, the Bigfoot thrive, is kind of getting pushed. So that's my opinion, that they're sometimes getting more reports closer to town and even closer onto tribal properties because, they just put in an oil rig over here. There's a gas, natural gas rig that's come in. And so there's been some reports in an aggressive manner. There's been on tribal land where some truckers that come in to do some of the gas, what they call tank batteries, and some of them have been charged at night when they're there. So there's been a few things that are occurring, and we're referring to it as basically that the ecosystem is kind of getting in a spot where it's kind of pushing them into a corner, I guess, so to speak.
I think it's pushing all of the animals into a corner.
Yes. No, I yes, totally agree. Because even in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, for now it's not uncommon to be in the middle of a major city and see a fox or a coyote running down the middle of the street. So more people are wanting to move out into the country. There's more people wanting to get out into that peaceful part of the country. So that means more development, cutting down more trees. So everybody knows kind of where that's leading. Back on the tribal land, you have one tribe in the north part of Oklahoma. I won't give their location because they've had problems with researchers in the past, and we don't want to make that any more of a problem. This particular tribe actually has land that is across a river that's a wooded area that is secluded to the Bigfoot. There's been stories that the housing community where, some of the elders and some of the senior citizens live in a little housing development area. In the summer times, the Bigfoots will come out there and just get in the trash cans and kind of pull on the clothes, knock clothes off the line. And, they'll call they have tribal police and they have BIA, depending on certain areas of tribal property. They either have a tribal police department or they have Bureau of Indian Affairs. So the BIA officers, and I actually got to talk to one. This has been many, many years ago. I actually got to talk to one, and they got a call from a particular resident that called quite often because her house was kind of at the far end of the neighborhood, closer to where the river and closer to the woods are. So she was more acceptable for them to come out and cause havoc. My understanding was this was a young one, so it wasn't really an older Bigfoot, so to speak, and it would get in to cause some mischief. And this one B officer said that they would just pull up, and depending on where they're at, the property, and the way the reservation, the way the property is, some of them sometimes are on four-wheelers. In this particular evening, they pulled up on four-wheelers and caught a glimpse of it. It was cutting across a small pasture heading towards the river, and they said that they said they gave pursuit. And they got halfway across the field, and it kind of left them in the dust. And they just said, well, he's going on back across the river. So there are things that occur on some of these lands that's kind of an everyday type occurrence. I wouldn't say everyday, but a more random type occurrence than normal. There's some other properties in southern or south central Oklahoma, of course, near rivers and lakes, bodies of water. The community is pretty much predominantly native. This is within the Creek Nation. This particular area, the people that live in this small community of about 50 or 55 people, houses are kind of spread out. They've been hearing things and seeing things, and they've requested a town hall. One of my other investigators actually works for the Creek Nation, and he has contacts there, and he's done a couple of town halls there with them, and they have a lot of stuff going on. They hear a lot of noises. They see a lot of things. They look out their window. Somebody's getting up in the morning to go out to get in their car to drive to go to work, turn around, their headlights shine, and there's one standing out there in the field. So they're seeing more and more activity in their mind. They're getting more and more visuals of them standing out in the field or cutting across or going from point A to point B. So some of the communities are seeing more now than in the past. So they are kind of seeing an upscale of movement, where in the past it may be 4 or 5 months. Well, I hadn't seen that blonde one for, I saw him last year. Well, now they're seeing things that's kind of coming monthly, sometimes weekly. So a lot of the communities are even talking about the upstep in stuff going on.
What do they think that means, that they're seeing more Bigfoot, or they're being more aware of that?
Well, one, the encroachment on the heavy wooded areas, the encroachment on industry. There's a lot of oil, natural gas rigs. I worked in a county. I was an emergency manager in a small county, and every time I turned around, the next month there'll be a new gas rig put in somewhere else, and they cut a big, huge pad in the woods and set up those big drilling units and towers. So you can kind of look at a Google Earth map of Oklahoma, and if you start to zoom in a little bit, you can start seeing all the oil pads all over southwest Oklahoma, all over. I mean, you just start seeing them scattering everywhere. You start seeing all the clear cuts down in the southeast part of Oklahoma in the mountains. So, their habitat's being taken away, so they have to find other places. There is a common question that's given about, are they nomadic? Do they move? I've been in this for 15 years now, from the time where I really started taking information and data about locations and sites, habituation sites and different things. I can pretty much now go back and explain that in certain areas of Oklahoma, there's activity year round, obviously except the very extreme heat and an ice storm. they're not obviously not seen, but I can pretty much put activity in those places out of 12 months out of a year. So they're not really moving around. They may go away for about a month or so, but they always keep coming back. So they have their areas where they stay. They're little, and see, a lot of the tribes, I don't know about the Ojibwe, but if you look at way it's explained to or from, like the Chickasaw, the Choctaw, the Cherokee, the Seminole, the Comanche, the Arapaho, the Seneca. I mean, we have 37 federalized tribes in Oklahoma. So you even take a quarter of them, most of them in their traditional language, explaining what a Bigfoot is and what the Bigfoot people are. They refer to them as a people. They refer to them as another tribe of people. So they live in family groups. They have their own hierarchy in their family. They have a father, they have a mother, they have children, they have siblings, and the siblings get older and they move away and create their own family. So there is a flip side to it, which goes into a whole completely different topic about what they are.
Let's take that opportunity to go to our commercial break, and we're going to be right back and pick it right back up where we left off. Stay tuned, everyone. Awesome. Good job. I don't know if we're going to have time to play all of those sound clips.
Well, I can cut whatever you want. I can just kind of keep it.
Well, no, because you're getting into talking about the native stuff, and I know that there's people tuning in that really want to hear that stuff the most.
Yeah.
So maybe if we don't get to all the sound clips tonight, maybe you could come on another time.
Yep, that'll be fine.
Awesome.
You can make that actually, and I can get you more clips, and you can make that another show.
Okay, that sounds good. So if we don't get to that, that's okay. Because really, I'm always interested in gathering native information, and this is probably the best way that I can do that from here in the wintertime.
Right. And if you have any questions, instead of me just sitting here blabbing, if you have any questions,
they're coming. They're coming.
It may help draw some of that out, that I'm maybe forgetting. So.
Absolutely. For sure. Exciting. So I'm probably going to be asking you, not right now, but I'm going to be asking you what the different tribes believe Bigfoot is.
Right. Okay.
So, and if there's differences in those that you've noticed. And if you think there's different kinds of Bigfoot, are there, I think there's not necessarily different kinds, but there's differences, but
I know exactly. Yeah.
They don't all look the same.
Yeah, there's some things going on, and there's some things currently going on that's kind of leading some of us to believe that there's some other
30 seconds.
Thank you, Sarge.
So, yep.
Okay. Perfect.
Ten. And roll.
Welcome back to the show, everyone. This is the Journey Radio Show, and we're here tonight with Troy Hudson. And before we get back into the show, let me just tell you that we'd love it if you'd help us out. We've been challenged to a subscriber race on YouTube, and we're currently behind, so we need help. Will you please go to our YouTube channel at SheSquatchers Official and click the red subscribe button, because we need as many of you as we can get to win this race. We didn't start it. We want to finish it. So help us win that. And so you can also check out our website at SheSquatchers.com. And there you'll find also a link to our Facebook page. And that's where you're going to find the most up-to-date information, because I'm on that thing every day. So if you want to go ahead and follow us there. Otherwise, let's get back to the show. We've got Troy Hudson with us tonight. And he was just about to start talking to us about some native information from down south there in Oklahoma, Texas area. So back to Troy.
Where was I at?
You were talking about there was this kind, and then there was this other stuff going on.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I was talking about the family. What a lot of the elders have explained to me, and what my own observation, you know, they live in a family group. A lot of them live in a family group. They have their own hierarchy within the family. They have children. They have siblings. And, you know, when the siblings grow older, they move off and kind of start their own family. Most of everything that we have seen in a lot of our investigations. Now we have two types, in my opinion, we have two types of investigations. We have an investigation where someone reports they seeing something, and that's the end of it. A road crossing, someone was driving and saw something, or somebody was fishing and saw something, that's the end of it. The second one basically is somebody that owns land that has repeated periodic visitations, or they're seeing something, they don't know quite what it is, and then there may be another landowner that knows exactly what they are, and he sees, and we kind of get involved through various means. And a lot of the land properties where people refer to as habituation sites, I don't know if that's really the proper term, but that's what the research community calls it. We tend to find out those have more of a family orientated type situation where over a period of time, the landowner, and this is actually on tribal land, that they may be seeing a big one, they see a female, and then they start seeing little ones. So then we have obviously the family group. So and there's different heights of one seen at different times that gives an indication that we're looking at some teenage aged males or females. And of course, the behavior is different between the older ones and the younger ones. The younger ones act just like our children do. They're mischievous, behave, they get into things, break things, throw things, and scare things. So sometimes it's almost to the point that you're trying to, it's kind of interesting to try to figure out how their family orientation and their hierarchy in their family is not much different than ours, because there's been people that has heard what they referred to as something going on that sounded like some type of discipline going on in the woods, because they'll hear something little making a bunch of noise, and the big one will make a guttural type vocalization and hear a noise, and then that little one stops making all the whimpering and noise. So there's been, you know, those are speculations what's going on, but it's kind of referred to that sometimes their discipline of their children is similar to us, because if you think about it from the Bigfoot standpoint, given whatever that situation is, why they're choosing to be seen by the people that live at this property or that property, you would think they're now exposing themselves for their own security. But I think who knows what's really going on, why they choose particular properties that they actually keep going through or spending time on and being seen by the landowners. But there's a point you would think too, their security is so important, so they have to keep their children in line of not doing things, because then now they're giving away, you know, their entire location and everything about them. One of the things from a tribal standpoint that I've heard is that they are kind of some tribes refer to them, they're just another race of people. They're another race of a tribe of people. They have their own language. They have their own customs. They live apart from us because they're non-materialistic. They don't need and require the same things that we need. They grow up in their culture in a sense. They don't require the things that we have, and they're adapted to where they live and how they survive and how they behave and whatever they have going on. So some of the tribes embrace the situation where, like, one up north has property that's across the way from a river on the other side of the river. That's their place for them to hang out. That's the place for them to be. We leave them alone and they leave us alone. You know, sometimes they come across and get in the way. I don't know if y'all have ever heard of the Lucky Star Casino video. Several years ago, you can look at it, Google it. It was an incident at a casino out west of Oklahoma City where the employees at this tribal casino kept seeing Bigfoots out in the field at night. The trash dumpsters where the kitchen, where the casino kitchen is, they would go out and dump the grease and the grease traps and dump food and stuff. And sometimes some of the employees would get whistled at and hear things hit the side of the dumpster, run back in. Well, I got to know one of the ladies that worked there. This was post the video. I saw her report. I knew of the video from a security camera, and what the security camera did is security camera captured a Bigfoot had walked into into the view of the camera where one of the security lights was illuminating, and it ducked under the security light, which is at 10 feet, walks over, reaches down. Now remember, it's a dumpster. Reaches down and opens the dumpster up, reaches in, grabs a bag of trash, and then walks off. So the employees, over a period of time, security, this young lady that I know that worked there that saw the video, one night, the security guard walked out there to the door, and she went out, dumped trash, came back, and said, "I just got whistled at. What in the world? This keeps happening." He showed the video to her. She got to see the video, and basically, it almost to the point that they couldn't keep it quiet anymore because there's too many people seeing it. There's customers now turn their car headlight on, and there's something standing out there at the tree line. Somehow, I can't remember how the media got involved. And a Bigfoot organization got involved and showed up at the casino and wanted to get a copy of it, and it got on the news. So there was a wait between the casino management and the tribe. Do we corner this and use this as publicity, or do we keep this quiet and go on about our business because you have a casino that's making money, it's a tourist attraction, it's people bringing people in, it's helping the economy of the tribe. But at the same time, you have traditional leadership in the tribe that's saying, look, no, Bigfoot is a topic that we just don't, this is for our elders. This is for part of our culture and our history. We don't talk about them. We leave them alone, but they're also coming over and getting in their business. So, excuse me, it was learned that the tribe elders decided to, in a traditional set, go down behind the casino, down to the river where they think that's where the Bigfoots, kind of come from. They use obviously the rivers as a tribal corridor. They went down there, and I can't remember exactly what was left. I don't know, a basket of fruit or what. But there was a offering made, and basically a discussion, and you can kind of take that as you will. A discussion of saying, hey, please leave, stay away from the casino. You're bothering the people. We don't come bothering you. Please respect us. And here's an offering to say, hey, let's have some peace here. And it stopped. It stopped for a while. This young lady that I talked to actually knew some lady that lived in a house not too far from the casino that was a single mom, had children. She would work at night. I learned through her that this lady was getting visitations at night because her children would call her at work and say, hey, somebody's banging on the door and rattling the door handle and tapping on the window and hitting the wall. Well, basically, a long story short on that, it ended up coming. What happened was we figured out that it was probably juvenile Bigfoots. We're seeing that mom was gone and the kids were home, and they would come in and, why they knock on the wall and on the door, we don't know, but it's all speculation of why they do that, but they do.
I've heard that before from other states, even, that they do that with children in the house.
Yes, I would say probably 1 out of 4 reports of habituation sites that I've investigated over the years, both Texas and Oklahoma and some Arkansas, and actually even in Ohio, a lady that found me on the internet and started doing an investigation for her. I don't know why I got involved, but she didn't want to use anybody local. She had the same thing. The children, and this is where I started seeing a little bit of a pattern. The children kind of started seeing things before the parents. And it's kind of strange because just like the one I'm dealing with now, I have another one dealing with on some tribal land, the kids see them first. And I don't know if it's the fact that it's juvenile Bigfoots that are seeing the children and trying to have some sort of connection there, because some of the way they talk, and some of the children, the human children at the property are so young, it's kind of hard to kind of grasp what they're trying to say. But a lot of them refer to as they stare at the bear. He's over there looking at me. And it usually takes a while. Sometimes it takes either an older sibling or one of the adults in the family to realize they saw what they saw, and now they realize what their kids are saying. So there is some type of an attraction with the children in a sense. Everybody has a speculation, but I have found that sometimes it's the kids there at the house before the parents do. There is, I just lost my train of thought.
I've got a question for you.
Yes.
Okay, so you were talking about families, how they would, get together and go off and have their own families. I was asked a question last weekend by someone, and it was a really good question, and I really want to ask you. And the question was, how are they intermingling, do you think, with other Bigfoot? So there's no
I know exactly what you're trying to
Yes,
say.
thank you.
I know exactly what you're trying to say. And not bringing up another topic, but, I am also involved in the Sasquatch Genome Project, which is the DNA, and that's a controversial topic as well. But for the sake of argument, the DNA the way it's described, and I'm not a DNA expert, but I've had to learn all this by being part of the project. There are certain parameters, I guess, and there would be certain things that people describe, footprints, the way their footprints are left, the way the footprints look, and there are certain behavioral things that people talk about. Habituation site, a young lady lives in a trailer and she lives in the woods, and she says every now and then this rogue bad one comes around because the way his behavior is. So there's observations from people, there's foot tracks left, and the way the DNA is in some manners of some of the samples, not all of them, again, I'm not an expert, but there's some suggestion that you may have that type of intermingling with each other, just like in humans. In our situation, when you have that, you can see the product from the child born coming up. You can kind of see that must have took place. There is a theory that that's also plausible in this situation. Rogue Bigfoots, there's been situations where I've done some investigations at locations and hear people talk, and my own observations of the places I've been. And it is known, and I've heard this in certain tribal communities, and it's talked about that sometimes there may be one that is alone, and he travels, and all he does is he's got a bad attitude. He just is not. He's got a bad attitude. I mean, his demeanor is all but negative, so to speak, and all bad. And there's been one time there was a location where somebody actually got to see the one that they think is a rogue one, and the way he walks and the way he carries himself is completely in a nature of just somebody that just, is in a bad mood all the time, tearing stuff up, getting into the garden, causing the dogs to, just get bent out of shape, and just, he just stomps through and keeps on going. But the animals and everything acts different when he comes through. So there'll be no way to confirm that, but there has been some situations like you have footprints that may have the digits are wrong, the toes are wrong, the toes look weird, 3 toes, 4 toes, 5 toes. I mean, there's different things. You can also account maybe that one got injured, and there's a reason why that toe is pointing that way or something. There's no way to know, but there's certain circumstances that once you start balancing, putting it together, you kind of start leaning towards that. Well, maybe there was. And no one really knows their population. I know I can account for a population at certain times when we have expeditions and investigations, because if our investigators in different areas away from each other and they're all having activity and can account for 2 or 3 of them in the woods with them, we can make an assumption of how many is in that area right then and there. So at the same time, taking like a 10-year span, you start throwing darts on the board of all the sightings that happened on this day at this time, and all the sightings that happened on this day that time. You can start accounting for certain populations in those, but it takes years to collect that data to figure out what you have going on. With that being said, there's no reason to say that they probably don't have any type of intermingling of themselves to keep their population going, that they may have to have that. So, I mean, it's a very good question, and it's been observed and asked, and there's things and people's theories, and I would say it's highly, highly plausible.
Thank you.
Very good. Very good.
Good answer.
So we're quickly running out of time, but one of the things that I wanted to ask you for sure is, I know that you're talking with various tribal peoples down there and listening to the elders. Can you tell us what they believe Bigfoot is, and if there's any differences that you're hearing and any similarities?
Yes. All of them have a similarity. Now I have just in my mind trying to remember. I've had so many conversations with so many at different times and in different reasons why I was having those conversations. Some of them could have been, there's just so many. I've talked to elders with the Caddo tribe, of course the Ponca, the Delaware, the Comanche, the Choctaw, the Cherokee, the Chickasaw, the Creek, the Cheyenne Arapaho, and even the Comanche elder, and that was just a brief one. And I can go back to some of those to each tribe, but the general consensus is they are another type of people. They're another form. They're another tribe of people. They have their own language. And again, they have their own hierarchy. They have their own structure. They have their own cultures. And there's times that I have heard some deep conversations with some elders about the past. Some say that whenever they come from Florida or from Georgia or from Mississippi, that when they were removed, there were certain times of travels, because some of the tribes were removed by force with obviously, the military. And then there were some parts of the tribe, bands of the tribe, clans, or however you want to call it, would kind of leave on their own to go. So they're unescorted. Some of the testimony is basically that the Bigfoots traveled with them to the new land. But there's also, I'm digging deep into the Caddo history, because the Caddo Indian was in the area of southeast Oklahoma, northeast Texas, and Arkansas, Louisiana area way long before the Choctaw and Cherokee ever were in the area. And they refer to that the big man, the tall man, the Bigfoot, were already there in the woods, already there in the land when they came to that location. So I'm trying to dig back a little bit further and a little bit further. I'm kind of getting there, but you have to find the right person, and you have to find the right person that's willing to kind of talk about it and share it. A lot referred to is that their parents, now this is the tribal elder speaking, that their parents say that their ancestors would be able to communicate with the Bigfoot, because for them to live where they were, they had to have some type of cohabitation, because they would come across each other in hunting and stuff. So there was mentions of trade. What I have gotten out of it, trade meaning that the Bigfoots, the tall people, were already there when the Indians moved into that area to occupy that space. They traded the information between hunting and what types of vegetation and what areas were the best to be hunting in and stuff. Now this is just information I've gathered over the years that some of them talk about, but they're all kind of consistent. One of the things that's very fascinating about this, and that one tribal elder, now I'm actually confirming and seeing this now with some of my cousins talking about how he's hearing from, which would be my uncle and his father and a few others, that at one time that they could speak to each other in their language, meaning if it was creek, he would be able to speak to the Bigfoot in Creek, and the Bigfoot would be able to speak back in his own language. So those are stories I've heard quite a bit, off and on. But at the same time, obviously, if you know and look at any of Scott Nelson's studies, he's been studying their language too, because they have a language opposite of what the tribes talk about. That the reason why they can communicate with them, because they have their own language. So, and that's Scott Nelson. He's the kind of the expert in that area, because that's what he's researching in that as far as his expertise.
Oh, very interesting. Very interesting. So have you seen any differences in the opinions of what they are or the history of the people with
No,
the Bigfoot?
they're pretty consistent as far. One, they always refer to as another type of people, another tribe of people. That's always consistent. Some of their names that they describe refer to tall man, big man, the man that lives in the woods. The Creek Nation has like 4 or 5 different types of names for them for different things. The Choctaw has, they have they call it Scampy. They have different names that they refer to, and it also is geographical, from what I also understand, because there are some tribal elders that I've actually gotten to talk to from the Choctaw side that refer to that there are some, and the Seminole do too, almost parallel. Which it's interesting because if you look at the Choctaw, Chickasaw, Seminole, and Creek, they're all actually from the same language family, the Muskogean language family. So their languages are a little bit different, but originally they were all the same family as far as their language is concerned. Some say they have a word for them that means to forget, that this particular Bigfoot, when he's seen by the people in the tribe, if they come across him on a creek bank or in a field or in the forest, when the person sees the Bigfoot, he is caught in is mesmerized, and he forgets about what he's doing. The Bigfoot walks off, and by the time he goes back, everybody says, "Hey, where you been?" I said, "I don't remember. I went walking in the woods." So there actually is some stuff going on there that we have actually talked to witnesses, and we've actually had encounters with hunters and other people that's also referred that they've actually had some time problems about being in the woods. I was only out there for 10 minutes. No, you were out there for 4 hours. No, I was out there for 4 hours. No, you were out there for 5 minutes. So now we're actually having some data to back up some of the elders' discussions about their names for them. Some of this, like the Seminole, talk that they live underground. When somebody's looking for them, when man's looking for them, they just go underground to retreat back. So that way, whenever they're going out into the forest looking, they can't find them. A lot of some of the tribes, and even when I went up to Wisconsin to speak up there at the Mohican tribe, I met a couple of people, and they referred to that they heard from their elders and from other people living in the community that's where the Bigfoot lives up there too, is underground. That's where they go. So
Very interesting. Very cool. I think it has to do with the habitat too, like what's available to them. If there was caves or whatever, they probably would be in the caves. But if there isn't,
I agree. And at the same time, if you were to really go looking, and there's things about it that you can get into about how do they know and all that kind of stuff. But I have noticed, though, if they're standing here and you're coming, they always keep a barrier between you and them. And if they even know remotely that you're coming, and remember, that's the place where they live, so they know every stick, rock, tree, bird. They know every sound in that spot. And the moment they know something's not right, who's to say that they've already gone to where they were going to be before you even got halfway into the woods? So,
yes, that's why we like to surprise them.
So many questions and just not enough time.
Not enough
Golly.
time. We are almost out of time. Would you like to tell people how they could find you online?
You can Google the Honobia Bigfoot Conference on that website, or you can see us on Facebook under the Native Oklahoma Bigfoot Research Organization. We have about half a dozen investigators scattered all over Oklahoma that handle different parts of the region. We have I forgot what the blog is called. It's Hanabi Oklachito blog. I can't say how you say the blogs, the blog.
Okay.
Yeah, you caught me on that one.
Awesome. Well, we really are happy that you came on the show with us tonight, and we had some audio clips that we didn't even get to play, but on our break, we were talking to him off the air, and he's agreed to come on again. So we'll have to have you on again, and we've got lots more to discuss with you. So thank you for coming on the show tonight. Thanks for tuning in, everybody.
Thank you.
All right. Good night, everyone, and we'll see you next week right here on the Journey Radio Show.
Good night.